There was when I was waiting for you at Queen Square, there was a guy who was just across the way.
Yeah.
And he was acting like I thought you would act in terms of wasn't quite looking for someone. But he didn't have a beard.
Okay.
And he looked very different to you. And I thought, I mean, has he just shaved his beard off?
Yeah. Not told anyone.
Dramatic plastic surgery or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. It's funny because there was like a guy walking towards me from the square, and I thought it was you, just kind of because the way he was sort of striding. I was going, hey, and then he just walked past. I was like, hello, no, not you, other guy.
Doing your comedy thing.
My comedy thing, yes.
Which is down in Bedminster, isn't it?
Yeah.
The Comedy Box.
The Comedy Box.
Nice venue, and because you had a gig last night.
Yeah.
And it went nice. They were pleasant. It's
a lovely room. It's lovely. It's a perfect size sort of comedy venue, like nice and dark and sort of. Well, it's just set up perfectly. It was interesting last night because it has a great reputation. I said, right, this is the kind of place I want to do Friday, Saturday nights instead of screaming stags and hens where I'm trying to explain economic theory to them and they're shouting penis at me and I'm going, but you don't understand the inflation, we have an inflatable penis. Okay, well, you win, clever heckler. But it was a 30-person retirement party right at the front, and the club said this never happens. Like we don't get stags or hens, but that is. And it was a retirement party, and they were really sweet because it was like Cocoon. They're like there's a bunch of them in the front. They were so old and grey and just sort of like, hello, young man. And it sort of took them a little while. Like the first act and the MC, it took them a while to get going. In the second half, they were away.
So they were laughing and everything. They were,
yeah, and they were very. It was almost like comedians talk about the theatre audience, like that lovely. You can do anything, and at one point I was whispering material because I went down that low just to see if they'd come with me, and they did. I love that. I always like sort of, and then boom, you're out again, and they go ding, 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 ding. And it's almost in your own head. You're sort of keeping yourself on your toes, going, well, let's see what will happen if I do this with them. Will they come with me? And they did, which was nice.
No, that's great. Yeah. So you can, and you take those things kind of as they come, like you'll suss out the crowd and kind of go with it and see what they can take and see what they can't. And
you try to find, you go in with a plan, and within about 5 minutes the plan is gone, and then you have plan B, and by 10 minutes that's gone as well. And then you're kind of thinking like there's certain lines for me that you never try to pander to them. You know, you always have sort of, this is the body of work that I have, this is what I'm going to bring to you, but how I'm going to introduce it to you is the trick.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I'll need a little bit of sort of softening up and sort of hey, how's everybody doing? Yeah. Sometimes I can just go, right, abortion, and they'll go, yeah, let's talk about abortion. And that's fine. But last night was definitely, hey, how is everybody doing? That is the biggest seagull I have ever seen, right? I'm just going to say it, just in case he comes over in the middle of it and we weren't ready for it.
They are quite frightening. They kind of come over and swoop just as soon as...
Such a calm son of a bitch as well, just sitting there.
Beforehand there was one sort of just sat there, like we would be totally in the shot. Kind of, I'm here.
Yeah.
And making no apologies for it.
Yeah. I'm just waiting for Ben to kick off now and get into a fight with the seagull. Go on, Ben! Take a swing.
Ben wants a shot of the seagull. Pause.
That's probably a good idea.
Oh no, not before he...
You see, I wasn't lying. That is it.
Excellent.
Look at him. Just couldn't care less that there's humans who could kill him at any moment.
Cut that.
We're bigger than you and you're not scared.
They are huge though.
Yeah.
And also, I don't like their eyes. They're like...
But it's the beak as well. It looks like a bit of blood on his beak. You kind of wonder what this poor small child had an ice lolly that he just nicked and then took an eyeball as well.
I mean, I think it's tomato ketchup. Because I'm pretty sure, because they hang around here.
Yeah.
And basically, as soon as anybody goes...
Yeah.
Then they just get straight on it.
But that's nice. Right.
Right. Anyway.
Thanks, Siegel. Thank you. And
Abortion.
Jonathan Ross never has this problem. He's sitting there. Siegel wanders in. Tom Cruise, can you hang on a second? We just got to deal with the Siegel here.
Yeah, just get a shot of the.
So that wasn't even Jonathan Ross. Sorry, Tom. Sorry, I just got to deal with this. I can't do impressions.
That's really good.
I can't do impressions.
Yeah, but that's much better than I could do. It's like the comedy impression, the over kind of egged sort of.
Yeah. It wasn't true to life then. So let's wipe it away.
You were saying about abortion. And
oh God, was I? Really, it's a bit early for that.
I mean, you did mention it, but it just made me think of your topics that you address in your stand-up shows.
Yeah.
Like the first one was explicitly about racism.
No, it was about the death penalty.
Death penalty. That was the one, and then.
Death penalty, racism, women's rights, and the last one was about money.
Money.
The next one's about fear.
Oh, fear. I see. Okay. So you had the money one when the financial crisis.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. Everyone thinks that I sit down and I go, ooh, this is, the topic of that I'm just, what happens is I sit down and I just write like a lot of what's going on and a lot of topical stuff. And I mean, the year the money won, the crisis was sort of really kicking off, and it had kicked off in Ireland, and we were sort of in that phase of really having to deal with it and trying to figure out what we do next. The racism one was the year that the BNP got in. There was a Roma family run out of Belfast. There was a lot of far right stuff, and there still is, and all this stuff is very like, this is the thing, like these shows tour for like years because like things keep happening, and I just did last week, I did my women's rights show, which is 2 years old because International Women's Day, and I had to rewrite about 20 minutes of it just to update it, just because so much stuff had happened since then,
circumstantially.
And in Ireland, you see, abortion is illegal still, and it's the big debate going on right now. And what you have is the Catholic Church suddenly, who has been sort of in decline, with this resurgence of power, and bishops sort of walking the streets going, this is wrong. And you're kind of going, hang on a second, you guys were hiding records on child abuse. So 4 years ago, 2008, they were claiming canon law. And you're kind of like, no, we're not. Listen, no. So it's suddenly turned into a big sort of confrontation between, the sort of the pro-life and the pro-choice. And I always think the pro-choice is the worst name for a campaign. It's like margarine. It's like, I'm just trying material now. Hey, this is just new material. Hey, let's try it. But it's an interesting ideological battle. Like I hate when, because I don't ever like, I think it's weird with me because people say, oh, he's a political comedian, and people think political comedy is just sort of Labour versus Tory, and sort of there's no real political comedians, doing sort of mainstream TV or anything like that. There's a few bits and pieces here and there, and it's hard because I don't think it's political. I just think it's sort of curious, and it's about inequality, and it's just themes that are happening around us, but people just don't know what to call it. I don't know what to call it, because that's somebody else's job. But nobody's come up with a term for me yet that I'm happy with. Even my own name, Keith, I'm like, I hate that name.
But I suppose it's not about you and your life and what's happened to you.
This is the thing. This year I'm really trying to put myself back in it, because I think the first show, the Cruel and Unusual show, was about the death penalty, and it was about the death penalty because I worked as a law student against the death penalty, and it was basically my experiences going from knowing nothing about the death penalty as a law student, just sort of in Cork, and then suddenly being sort of transported to Atlanta, Georgia, and to New York, and working with these incredible people and the stories that they had to tell about, so that was me, that was all me. And then sort of, the shows became topical, and now this year I'm trying to get back into just me telling stories and sort of,
Is any part of it, like with the death penalty, you kind of felt entitled to be able to talk about that because you'd done your research on it, it was something you knew about, as opposed to just it being meaningless, you gotta put that to one side, because you gotta say, like I did a show about women's rights, what entitles me to talk about that, really? And you've gotta sort of, and you have to address it sometimes. You have to address, well, why should I be the guy to talk about this? And then you go, well, I just am. This is what I'm doing. So on we go. And so yeah. But I think the first one, it wasn't really about entitlement. It was more about,
you know, this is something, like, it was the first time, like, I'd done the circuit for maybe 2 years, and I was sort of felt like I was going a bit in circles. And it was my dad and my brother, like, we had a pint one Christmas, and they said, what would you like to do? What would you? And I said, I'd really like to do a show, because I'd done a lecture on the death penalty to the law students, and I thought I'd really like to do a show where I could talk about that. And they said, well, why don't you do it? Go to Edinburgh, and you know, because you think to yourself, ooh, first Edinburgh. You know, I didn't have any strategy. Like, I mean, I think a lot in England there's an incredible strategy now to Edinburgh. Like, people do the 20s and the 30s and the hour. Like, I just went with an hour on the death penalty, which I didn't finish writing till 2 weeks after Edinburgh was finished. 2 weeks after Edinburgh was finished, I did a show in London, and I found my ending. I'm like, that's my ending. And I was like, oh, so late. So I was lucky. I survived Edinburgh. But, like, I only did one 45-minute preview before I went, and I was writing the show all the way through Edinburgh. Like, every day I was in the cafe rewriting the show, trying to fix it. And that's what I think Edinburgh used to be about.
Yeah.
Like, people used to, like, Frank Skinner apparently did, and his first Edinburgh, because he didn't know what to do, he did an hour show that transformed into a different hour by the end of it. So he started with 1 hour, and he kept writing every day, and by the end of it he had a different hour, and he won with 2 different hours, and you're kind of like, in a month. And that for me was like, it was exciting, it was scary, it was every day, I was in the moment. There was disasters of gigs, but there was great, like, just moments when you just knew you had it. And I think Edinburgh's become very, you know,
it isn't anymore, really, is it?
I don't know what to call it. I don't know what to say about it, because I you know, I mean, Andrew Maxwell had this great thing where he called it, like, clown college. It's college for clowns. You go up and it's your exam at the end of the year, you know. And I kind of think, you know, it's actually, for me, it's another excuse to have, you know, another hour, basically. I need another hour, sort of, you know, I want another hour of stuff, and I want to write more and get better. So it's festival go, try not, I haven't really lost any money since I've done it, so...
I think, though, from an industry point of view, it's definitely an event in the calendar, in the comedy calendar, as opposed to, you know, as opposed to this place where people are working on ideas and it being a creatively exciting place.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Well, it is creatively exciting. I mean, you see things up there you wouldn't see on the circuit. You see people up there you wouldn't see anywhere else, and you see some, like, you know, the American. I always try to see, like, any of the Americans or Canadians that come over. Like, Eddie Pepitone was over from New York last year, and he was stunning. Like, he was just. It was such simple ideas, but done with such a way that I was like, oh, like, you could see comedians in the room going, oh, I could have thought of that. Why didn't I think? Like, he sits down and he heckles himself from the seat in the audience, and you think to yourself, surely somebody's done that, and then you realise, I don't think anybody has. And it's such a lovely device, and it's how he ends the show. He deconstructs his entire show, sitting in his own audience. And I think he's got a film out now, The Bitter Buddha, which I can't wait to see, because it's just, he's been around for, like, everyone in America knows who he is, but he just never got that break that he should have.
Is it something about coming from the outside of the UK comedy circuit, because it's quite fixed in many ways? I don't know.
How do you mean in terms of? Well,
a comedian comes up.
Yeah, it's just someone you're not probably going to see at any other time of the year, and you know, unless they move over here. So, you know, you get the likes of sort of Sammy J and Randy. They just come over for the festivals. The puppet-based humour, which I'm a huge fan of. Like, this is the thing, because people say, "Oh, you do political comedy." They think you're like, just, oh God, they just see you sitting in a suit somewhere with the Sunday Times writing. Whereas I love puppets, and I love robots, and I love talking about this, and zombies and all this sort of crack. Like, there's a huge nerd inside of me just running around going, "Come on, we can," you know, like, even, yeah. I mean, it's that funny sort of contradiction, because then I go up and I talk about, all that stuff comes into it. But that's me. That's what I am. But I'm also talking about all these other issues that I'm interested in. It's great. That's what I love about the job. You can talk about anything. I can think to myself, God, I'd really like to, you know, write a show about Peruvian pottery making, and then I can go off and I can go to Peru and have an experience and see what pottery making goes on, and then try to write 10 minutes of material about it, which will never happen, because But it's just, you can be curious about everything. It's a great job to be in. If you want to find out, if you're interested in the world.
Is it something, though, that you've got a message, a clear message that you want to take across?
No, that's the worst. That's the,
and that would be bad.
I admire the ones who can do that, but I think you sort of go into activism then, and then that's different. If you're going to be an activist, be an activist. But if you're a stand-up, you know, I'm never. It's just that's a tricky line. I never try to tell anyone what to think. I always try to say, look, this is what I think, this is what I know.
So that's how you would have approached the death penalty.
Yeah,
because
even though I was obviously against it, so I had to, and that would come across clearly in it, because I'm presenting like that side of the argument, but I'm also presenting like why people will be for it, and I'm trying to deconstruct that, and at the same time make people laugh. So there's a lot going on. There's always a lot. I like having a lot going on just for myself in a show. It just keeps me sort of, interested and I think some people really like it.
But as a rule, if they're laughing, is it okay? Are you all right as long as they're enjoying it?
As long as they're enjoying it. Like sometimes I don't even need. Like sometimes there's just parts of the show and there's no like there's always like a dip. There's like it's not about like like you do an hour show. You can't keep them. The people just get worn out. Like the natural sort of attention is like 40 minutes, I think. So you got 20 minutes there where you can just go really quietly if you want and tell stories and do whatever, and keep them chuckling along, keep them happy. But you definitely. I've rarely seen shows that I've really remembered that I've laughed for an hour. Like I can see shows where there's just puns and surprises for an hour, and that's great. I won't remember any of it. But the ones I really remember are the shows like Eddie Pepitoni's, where he just and there's like a bit of a lull where he just likes to sort of play with you a bit more. Simon Munnery can do it so well. Like all the great sort of acts, Tommy Tiernan.
And just because they're laughing, it doesn't mean you don't have to be constantly laughing to be really enjoying it.
I don't think so. I hope not, because they don't. I'm saying that thinking I hope anyone who comes to a show just doesn't think, oh God, I'm not laughing for the last 4 minutes. It's never that long, but it can feel long. Like you could like a minute, like 2 minutes of a story can without a laugh. When you're used to a club, like you're always trying to. Sort of because when you club gigs, you just every week, and you've got to be very careful that you don't get into that sort of fear that you've got 20 minutes and you need to really nail it, or the club won't bring it back. And that's why it's nice that there's clubs now doing 45-minute shows and hour-long shows where you have time. You can breathe a bit and you can explore things and you can go off in a rant and you mightn't find anything, but you've got half an hour to fix the gig. You've blown it, you've destroyed, you've just. I did it last night. This guy just shouted something at me, and I just went bang, and I vented. I had like an enema of every bad thing that's happened this last week. I just and I kept talking again, and it went to that stage where it was like, ha, funny. Ooh, no, too far. Oh no, and then okay, I got to start the gig again. And I was feeling, I quite enjoyed that. Like, I was feeling quite, that was quite, and you kind of have to be careful. It gets a bit sort of. What's the word I'm looking for? When you're indulgent, self-indulgent. It gets a bit self-indulgent. So you have to watch that as well.
But I mean, is there a certain thrill in losing a crowd and then winning them back? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You kind of.
Yeah, but I like, and there's comedians who do that for a living, and I admire them, and I dip my toe in it every now and again, and I think as you go on, as you sort of when you have time. You can do that, and I've lost audiences without even trying. I didn't have any noble purpose at all. I just lost them. They just went. They didn't like it, and I never got them back, because some of my shows, like the Sex Traffic show, that had a lot of stuff about. It was basically a shopping list of all the horrors that happen to women. And exploring how there's a myth about equality and what it's like to be a feminist. Like, I'm a feminist, and I'm not a male feminist, because I'm like, I don't need to be called a male man. I'm just a feminist, and explaining that a feminist can just be, somebody who believes a woman should have the same choices as a man. That's my definition. It's probably not right, but for me, it's a very good definition, because it now allows people to go, oh, I'm a feminist as well, as opposed to people thinking, feminist is just a scary, hairy lesbian running around cutting off every penis she could find, putting it in a bag and just drowning in a river. That's what people think because the media's done that. And I can go, and in all that show, there was bits where I just went right into stuff that was like enforced female circumcision, all the statistics there, and rape from a very different point of view. Because rape is this word, just like a lot of new comedians seem to think that if they just say, I raped her, and I raped it, and I there was a rape. Because rape is a word that goes, people release the energy when that word comes up. And I came at it from a very different point of view, and you can lose people because it gets, and then you've got to bring them back out again, and it's this thing where, you know, sometimes you crash the plane and sometimes you pull it out of the dive, and when you crash the plane you don't really walk away. You've crashed the plane. You kind of go at the end of the show, well, thanks very much for coming, and hope some of you, and they, it's funny because some of them enjoy it because they didn't expect it. Other people are expecting, you know, a very different show because they've seen clips of me. Like, if they see clips of me on some of the TV stuff I've done, they kind of think, ooh, one thing, and then they see longer clips of shows and go, oh, this is actually what he was doing. You know, because when you record the TV stuff, you can put as much political stuff in there as you want, but at the end of the day, you don't have power over what's sort of put in there. Although Tommy Tiernan's very clever. Like, if he doesn't want something in a bit, he'll just say the word cunt about a dozen times. He's so clever. He's got a brain up on him. You know, you could just see him. He'll have this beautiful bit of material, and then he'll do the next bit, which is really good as well, but he'll say the word cunt 20 times, and they'll just go, oh, we can't use that. And he goes, I know, I am amazing. Oh, dear.
That's something we can all learn from, I think. Thanks so much for this. Handshake.
Jeez, good man. That was. I didn't know what you were going to do.
Was it too much?
I was like, yeah. Let's try it again. It was like,
okay, sorry. There we go. There we were ready that time.
Good. Let's take three. No. Okay. High five. Bring it up. Yeah, that
was good.
Was that all right? You can use one of these things. You can use one of them. You can't, you know, whichever one you want.